This is Total Telecom TV at the Mobile World Congress, where I'm joined by Marc Halbfinger, the CEO of PCCW Global. Marc, I've announced you as one category title, but you're here in a multi-role capacity.
I am this time. I'm also a member of the board of directors of the Bridge Alliance, which is a federation of mobile operators in Asia Pacific. And also speaking on Thursday with regard to the Blockchain Summit, where I'll be also representing the GLF, the Global Leaders Forum, who are involved in thinking through a few of the forward frameworks, and perhaps we can talk about later.
Absolutely. Let's start with what you're seeing as key trends in the industry right now.
Well, I think that, first of all, obviously we're here at the Mobile World Congress. The push to 5G is starting to bring forward not just the fact that 5G is going to avail more capacity, but also going to be driving applications at the consumer and the enterprise level. It's not just about devices, but it's also about network automation, network capabilities that will deliver more value to end users at all level of the food chain. IoT, which has been certainly formed in the automobile industry, is becoming much more valuable, certainly in food chains that we're seeing in China. I think it's certainly going to lead to what's called Industry 4.0, and the thought processes around frameworks for settlement and IoT are still things that need to be worked out. But the whole notion of automation, additional capacity, edge cloud capabilities, and IoT seem to be the drivers here, but not just.
So how is that going to have a knock-on effect of, like the networks of the future? How will they differ from the networks of today?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to categorize networks, right? There's obviously domestic networks in delivery of mobile service, but there's also the fixed networks that have various other types of services in which they're being delivered. Fixed mobile convergence was a buzzword some time ago, and I think that many operators around the world, provided that they're licensed to do so, have figured out what are the engineering requirements associated with fixed mobile convergence, but it's still operating very different environments. IP backbones and IP infrastructures, secure networks, clouds that are delivering various services as a network. Now we're moving to network as a service, where various elements of virtualization are now facilitating different types of network slicing in the mobile area, or what used to be known as CDN now being delivered on an on-demand basis to various users for various applications. So as we evolve, as the automation and software base of networks become more sophisticated and at the same time easier to use, more and more opportunities arise for operators, whether they be in the fixed or the mobile domain, and depending upon which type of application they're trying to deliver to their set of end users.
Yeah, what about the automation in those networks? It's going to be quite critical, isn't it?
We acquired about a year and a half ago a company called Console Connect, which is focused on software-defined networking automation, initially to deliver cloud-to-cloud automation, then network-to-cloud, and now we're working really on network-to-network. And we believe that this will also help facilitate any type of work that might take place going forward in terms of assuring that end users, no matter how large they might be, the networks themselves, will be able to provision bandwidth on an on-demand basis in and amongst different networks, which I think is some of the keys. It's one thing to develop a network downstream to a retail provider, where you're in control of the entire ecosystem. It's another thing to work with other networks in order to create end-to-end automation, for instance, for multinational enterprises or for complex IoT delivery of services. This will require increased automation, provisioning, settlement, all of that working with the provisioning of the network on an automated basis. And that's where we're headed through the acquisition of Console Connect.
So do you see that as one of the big shifts coming up in the next 18 months?
I differentiate between shifts and trends. Okay, I think that automation by definition is becoming necessary because the types of services that users are demanding are requiring increased complexity in productization, in contracting, and in having multiple stakeholders involved in delivering. If an IoT service is being delivered, for instance, for vehicles, and so a automobile manufacturer also wants to work with the entity that's providing an application, how many levels of permissionable access do you provide to different types of enterprises? How do you assure that that IoT capability can transfer over geographic borders or physical network borders? All of these issues require complexity and sophistication, and therefore nothing can happen on a manual basis. That requires, therefore, increased automation in the interaction amongst all of the different stakeholders providing a different service. that will in turn also yield some sort of thought process around automating the settlement process in and amongst all of these stakeholders.
Just while we're talking to you, there's a lot of investment going on at the moment in the world of submarine networks.
Yeah.
What's driving that?
Well, submarine networks, obviously, if you look at the food chain of the ecosystem, if you will, of connectivity, global bandwidth connectivity, the accessibility of any application on a global basis, first and foremost, starts with connecting countries. And undersea capacity is a key component. We're a big player in that area, particularly in the Asia-Pacific area, but also in the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and Africa. I think that this is quite critical, obviously, for the entire industry. Sometimes at Mobile World Congress, this goes a little bit unnoticed, but undersea capacity is the first step to get to connectivity. But I'd like to go back, if you don't mind, to the issue of automated settlements. This Thursday at Mobile World Congress, we'll be speaking at a sort of a blockchain summit that will be describing our framework of thought that has evolved through the Global Leaders Forum, to assure that all carriers would be able to create an automated settlement network, an automated settlement capability using distributed ledger technology, and assuring that service providers would be able to create various use cases, simple or sophisticated, over time, and that any service provider would be able to join that. The Global Leaders Forum created the initial framework, but as of next week, when we'll be having our meeting in Dubai, we'll be opening up that framework to all carriers, mobile and fixed, in order to assure that there can start to be a common framework for settlement of simple and sophisticated use cases on an international basis in a wholesale environment. And we're hopeful that this common framework can help facilitate a smoother alignment and a smoother adoption of increased complex services developed through cross-border interactions.
So this could be a key breakthrough in blockchain.
Well, blockchain is a word which is sometimes touted positively, sometimes negatively. Sometimes the association is with cryptocurrencies and so on. I think that blockchain is really a description of distributed ledger technology. It describes the ability to provide contracts through coded work, and therefore to create a common layer of trust amongst the service providers that would engage in a carrier blockchain network or distributed ledger technology network of carriers that have created the baseline of trust, that write smart contracts in and amongst themselves in order to facilitate service delivery, automated settlement through the common infrastructure.
Well, we'll look forward to finding out more, and in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us this
Great
week.
to see you, and thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll tell you a little bit more about Console Connect.